Hi, this is Chris Young, and welcome to Good News on Tap for the 31st Sunday of Ordinary Time. Now, Good News on Tap is supposed to be a spiritual and a religious reflection, but the past few weeks it seems like it's been more about politics than theology. It's been kind of rough with these readings that we've had, however. Last week we had the tension between Rome and Jerusalem and the effect of politics versus religion. The other week we had about caring for your neighbor. You do that in the light of current events where the nightly news is all about people complaining that the more fortunate in our society are ignoring the needs of the less fortunate. So it's been nearly impossible not to mix politics and religion in these situations. So coming into this week, I was hoping I could stick with a strictly religious theme. And then I opened up the scriptures to see what the readings were, and they were all about the unfaithful and corrupt leadership. Politics again. I keep trying not to be political, but it's hard not to do so given these readings. After taking a second look at the readings, I see that the cautionary tales this week are directed at the religious leadership and not civil leadership. The first reading is directed directly towards the priests. The message is that they're to give glory to the name of God and not glory to themselves or to their office. They're drawing attentions away from God and at themselves. They're being very prideful about their authority. This is followed by a psalm in which we pray not to be prideful or to seek high esteem, but to be humble and content like a child in his mother's lap. In the second reading, Paul gives us a real example of how to do that when he talks about his time among the people of Thessalonica. He says it was their goal to share not only the good news with them, but to share their lives with them, to sacrifice of their time, to be of service to them, like a mother is to a child. So it wasn't just about preaching to them, but it was about living out that preaching in the way they spent their time among them. He also points out that preaching did not come from them themselves, but came from God through them. He then gives thanks that the word that was preached to them is now alive and at work in the people of Thessalonians. Paul and the apostles led by example, and that example was carried out by the people after they left. Finally, in the gospel, Jesus talks about the religious leadership of his day. And he tells people to respect their authority, to follow their precepts and their rules, because God had given them that authority. But he cautions them not to use them as role models. Their preaching may be accurate and from God, but their actions say otherwise. He describes the leadership in the church that's more concerned with its own authority and high office than with actually living out the gospel. Going back to the first reading for a moment, God talks about defending his name. He's in effect defending his reputation as the one true God, who is a loving parent to all people. If his own appointed leaders or their followers at any level of authority do not treat one another with the compassion of a parent for a child, then it ruins his good name. And this applies to us as well. If we're constantly trying to hold on to our positions of authority, or becoming obsessed with fighting our way up from the bottom into a position of authority, rather than showing our concern for one another, then we too damage the name of the Lord. If we're only paying lip service to Christianity, if we're preaching the gospel but not really living it out in our everyday lives, then we are literally taking the name of the Lord in vain. We're taking on that name Christian without living it out. We're giving people an excuse to say, if that's what it means to be Christian, then I don't want any part of it. Now, if you don't think that your actions as a Christian can call into disrepute an entire religious belief system, then we need to look no further than the struggle of our Islamic brothers and sisters. Although they call God Allah instead of Yahweh, they still worship the same God of Abraham, the same God the Father that we worship. Yet the horrific actions of smaller groups of Muslims have unjustly brought hatred, animosity, fear, prejudice, and violence towards the entire Islamic faith. So let us examine not only our words when we proclaim the good news, but our actions as we live it out. Let us not only preach the good news, but live it out every day in our lives, and to set an example that will cause people to say, "Oh, I get it now. That's what it means to be Christian." Don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. And we've been assured that those who humble themselves in this way will in the end be exalted. And that's Good News on Tap for the 31st Sunday of Ordinary Time.